Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher, and we're rocking on the Blood DK for hopefully not the last time in Mr. Pandaria. It is one of my favourite tanking specs. It comes close to the Warrior and then probably even the Paladin for just its pure enjoyment and fun. One thing about this spec, if you're just trying it out for the first time, is it's just a blast. It's just a total blast all the goddamn time. I'm actually glad that Shadow Priest dead. I was about to record, I wanted to record Durumuru for you guys, but unfortunately, everyone was ninja pulling before I managed to set my tell me when up so you could see exactly what I was looking at. So, what a pity. What a pity for those guys. And then you went and died. What a pisser. What a pisser. So, the Blood DK, if you're picking up for the first time, it does seem a little overwhelming to some people, and I can totally see that. I understand why people feel that way about the Blood DK, but what you've got to remember is you don't need to feel that way by any means. It's not a case of something that's particularly difficult. It's the dual resource system generally can get a lot of people confused. I think was the way to say is like they're used to a single resource system, so it'd be mana and then they could just focus on the spells, or it could be, you know, just having generally good old time casting easy spells and not having a bit of a problem with it whatsoever. So I totally get why some people feel that this spec is, or the DK in general, can be a little bit tricky. I will say when you're AoEing like this, it's always important just to keep your death strikes up anyway. You don't want to be causing too much of a problem with that. Let's go and collect some more. You, come to daddy. Good, good, good. The Blood DK is brutal, and that's not what it was designed to be. It is a brutal, savage beast of a tank, because you are the big two-handed class, you are the big meat shield, you are the guy who comes in and takes names and generally just kicks things in the vagina without even trying, and that's what I absolutely adore about it, is it's straight up meaty goodness. Come to daddy. Where the hell did you think you were going? There's a lot of people who want it to be that way. You want to pick up the two-hander, you want to be picking up, or essentially feel like they're playing a DPS spec. I don't particularly feel like that is the way you should be. I don't feel like you should consider this as a DPS spec by any means. What you do need to remember is you are a tank. Yeah, you're wielding a two-hander. Yeah, you're kicking ass and taking names. And there you are with your straight-up pull. Where was the countdown, son? Buttkiss, is that your name? Buttkiss? Oh, I better chill out, I think, go to Pelagro. And therefore, they tend to play, especially in the Mr. Pandaria ideal, where there is a lot of damage going on. There is a lot of people who are really into the idea of being DPS tanks, despite the fact that Vengeance was nerfed recently, who still play with that kind of mindset. And that's cool. You can kind of get that feeling as long as you remember that you are a tank first and foremost, which is always cool to be. So we're going to talk about a couple ideas. I'm going to wait till he gets, what should we say, a 5-stack? Gets a 5-stack, and then I'm going to take it off this bad boy. Remember the changes in 5.4 mean that when you taunt, you actually do a significantly increased amount of threat. I actually find that kind of hilarious. That was just to prevent people who were who couldn't seem to stop themselves from going max balls to the wall DPS as soon as they take over. So when you're single targeting like this, what you've got to remember is you have a lot of options. So if you've taken Plague Leech, you want to be taking full advantage of that. And you can see I've got a nice tell me when set up there. That just lets me know, hey, you've got your Plague Leech up, you've got 3 runes ready and ready to go, and you need to get that using. So just get into the habit of using it, and you're going to have a really easy time with this. A lot of people find Plague Leech very difficult to track. See, I've got 4, 3, 2, 1. And the problem generally is that people struggle with the idea of having to track it and lose global cooldowns because they're so focused on other things. Your main goal while tanking, and what I'm doing right now, is I'm actually just making sure I'm getting effective blood shields. That's what I'm after. And this is a good fight for it. There's going to be a lot of damage out. Now, a lot of people tend to track their blood shields via add-ons. You know, they want to see a specific number associated with their blood shields. All that kind of stuff going on. I don't particularly mind that aspect by any means. I don't particularly mind people who are trying to get the super effective blood shields, but what I will say is people can focus on it far too heavily. And what we end up with is, in fact, a lot of people who are not, in fact, getting the best use out of their blood shields because, quite frankly, they're waiting for the perfect opportunity. It's kind of similar to a fire mage in that respect, where people are waiting for this idyllic scenario to fire off the combustion. What ends up happening is you actually lose valuable uptime on those kind of things. What I will say is the way I do it is I simply watch my health bar, okay? I just watch, I keep an eye on my health bar, and beyond that, I watch for taking some kind of damage. And other than that, I just track what the boss is doing. What is he going to hit me with in a few seconds? Anything important? And beyond that, that's it. You don't need to be worrying too much about anything else. You don't need to be focusing so much on Deathstrike that you're actually starting to delay them. Delaying Deathstrike for a couple of seconds to wait for a major boss ability is absolutely fine. No one's ever going to have a problem with that whatsoever. But what I will say is that trying to wait for the idyllic, the perfect, the absolute godsend of a Blood Shield is actually going to be detrimental to your play. Some people disagree with me on that. I just think overall, good, solid, balanced damage intake is where you want to be. I think that's where the winning scenario is. That's where the gold is going to be, and that's where you're going to get your best ever play. Just manage your runes, watch for those death strikes, but certainly don't be sitting on runes waiting to go. If you've got runes about to regenerate, you need to clear them off with a good death strike, and then make sure that you've got another one about to land. These guys are so tricky. Right, I'm going to turn this around. So many people never turn these around. I always find that quite kind of hilarious, so they don't do that. Yep. Easy. And then reapply. Remember that Glyph of Outbreak coming in really handy. The problem is, as I said in the guide, is that Blood DKs haven't had a great time. They've not had a great time in Mr. Pandaria. They had a particularly solid start. Blood DKs were really fantastic in the early days. And that was cool. Everybody was pretty happy. Blood DKs were actually really dominant almost during that period of time. I made a kind of funny intro, I remember, on the first guide, which was just tracking the idea that Blood DK is shitting all over Paladins, and of course the vice versa has occurred now. It's actually kind of hard to see the Blood DK being utilized to its full capacity anymore, which is really sad for me, because they're a fucking fantastic spec. They really, really, truly are a fantastic spec. They're so much fun. A good note to point here while we're here is while you're AoEing, remember if you have the glyph of Blood Boil, that your diseases aren't massively important until you get them going. But what you do need to be doing is making sure that you're still using your death strikes, okay? Remember with the new avoidance changes and the way Scent of Blood works is you'll be getting tons and tons of Blood Boil procs coming from the fact that you're doing some avoidance and whatnot. So what you don't need to do, you can see my Scent of Blood is proccing pretty regularly, but you still need to be mitigating. A lot of people, again, falling into this idea of the DPS style of play, often forget that you still need to be actively mitigating. We're even going to just drop a Plague Leech in there, get another free Death Strike, and keep that up. And you can see your health barely ever moves. So getting back to this idea of they were really strong, and now they're not so much. This comes from almost a fatal flaw, and actually one of the most interesting aspects of playing a Blood DK, and that's really sad. The most interesting aspects of the Blood DK is in fact controlling your Blood Shields. Anybody who's very spammy and just casts a Blood Shield whenever will find that they are not mitigating anywhere near as much damage as other people. So why is that? What's the reason behind that? And that is because you're not taking advantage of how Blood DKs work. And that is based on how much incoming damage generates your Blood Shield. Oh, these ninja pulling dick faces. Right, I'll go this side, I guess. Remember, using that Glyph of Blood Boil, I'm not too worried about my diseases in the early day. What I want to do right here in AoE, I'm going to get back to my subject any moment, is actually to get things together, create a Death Ball. We want to create the Death Ball. It makes life so much easier. I'm not overly worried about anything else. I want to pick up these ads. You know things are going to go pear-shaped in a moment with people just fucking generally casting Crimson Wake on everything that's ever existed ever. So we want to pick that up. So I'm just going to be using that Blood Boil. Again, I'm actually going to pop my Empower Rude weapon. I'm also going to pop my Vampiric Blood here. There's the Crimson Wake. Anti-Magic Shell straight away. Straight away with the Anti-Magic Shell. No fucking around, no messing. Keep the Death Strikes coming. I'm going to pop my Vampiric, my Dancing Rune weapon. Pick that guy up. Come here. Use my Vampiric, my Dancing Rune weapon. Now, again, with the Glyph of Outbreak, what you don't need to be worrying is trying to look for perhaps things to... I'll pick that up as well. It's perhaps looking for things that you want to Pestilence off. Because with the Glyph of Outbreak, in fact, you generally be swimming in Runic Power. In most cases. I think he's going to pick up the main boss, which is fine. That means I can just dual wield and play around with these. Which I'm absolutely fine. I'm okay with this. So getting back to this idea... is I watch my health bar here, as I said earlier on. Now, this idea of actively mitigating is great, but in practice, it actually leads us to various problems. You can see I'm just delaying that Death Strike just a little bit. I wasn't taking much in the way of damage. I would like to see my Blood Shields at least being used before we go a little bit crackers on these things. So I'm going to switch over my attention to here. See, I get an attack like that. That means I should have been prepared then for a good Blood Shield. Now, why are they weaker now? This stems from the idea that you have to get your good mitigation from taking damage, okay? And the problem with that is pretty simple. The problem is that we're now at the end of the game, you actually take so much damage, and then you need to sort of prop yourself up, is you can actually lead to being a little bit spiky. And being a little bit spiky is never fun. It's never fun for anybody. It's not fun for you. It's not fun for me. And generally, it just leads to all kinds of crazy issues. Vampiric Blood there. Be aware of how fucking regularly you can, in fact, just use your cooldowns. They're so nice. Gonna get rid of this and then Plague Leech that off. Yeah, just to make sure. Come on, Plague Leech. Do your job. Give me that. So, because of this, they've actually felt a little bit weaker to those people who mitigate damage before it's incoming. And that's the big problem, isn't it? It's the idea that we're mitigating damage kind of after it's come, sort of the after effect. We can prepare a Blood Shield for a big hit, but it's never going to be as good as the Blood Shield that comes after the big hit. And therefore, we run into this situation, this scenario, where frankly, we're just in a whole mess of trouble because we need to take that damage in order to get the best out of it. And then we have this fucking problem, don't we? We have this problem where we're definitely taking some of those hits on far more damaging attacks than what other people are taking. The last thing I'm going to take away from this is this idea of the avoidance. Avoidance got kind of a buff for 5.4 to make it more interesting. And now, it's one of those arguments that's going on to death. The traditional style of mastery play versus normal play. Personally, I love the mastery style of play. That's how the class was designed. What I can see with the avoidance change is actually Blizzard sort of relenting on that style of play. And actually thinking, this isn't working. Blood DKs are in a very poor place right now. And it's because of this having to take the big damage and then mitigate it later that's actually causing all the big issues. Little AMS there for the interrupting jolt. Give myself a full runic power. Do aware that your AMS does give you a shit ton of runic power to dump and get a load more runes back. And therefore they're using the Symbolism thing to try and prop it up, and people are seeing some really good results from that. Some exceptional results from that. And that's okay and cool. I would say I'm still sticking with the mastery style of play, because what I would expect to see is more than likely is once we get into the dark below or the depths below or whatever the new expansion is that a little bit of a reversion towards the idea of mastery play, or they're going to switch it all the way up till avoidance is actually king. I would be surprised to see them do that, as it makes us so weak against magic, something that DKs have been so traditionally great at. So we'll wait and see what happens with that. That's some Blood DK discussion, some gameplay, and some ideas for you guys. I hope you give this one a try. Doesn't matter if it's not the most powerful tank, because this thing is just a fucking blast. I'll see you later, guys. Bye.